The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above like a frozen ocean wave. 300 different alien species sat in perfect rows, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would normally fascinate any human visitor. But today the silence was so thick it felt like breathing underwater. Ambassador Lee Hanna stood completely alone at the small platform in the center of the chamber. Her black diplomatic suit looked tiny against the enormous space around her. Above her head, floating translation devices hummed softly as they converted the Chancellor's words into every language spoken across the galaxy. The mechanical voices echoed in dozens of different tones, but they all carried the same cold message. Chancellor Vexthera belonged to the Ethereal Collective, a species that looked like living shadows with glowing blue eyes. His form shifted slightly as he spoke, making it hard to focus on him directly. He had been delivering humanity's sentence for the past 10 minutes, and each word felt like a hammer blow to Hannah's chest. The species known as humanity has proven itself incompatible with galactic civilization, the Chancellor continued. His voice carried no emotion, just the weight of absolute authority. Their expansion patterns show complete disregard for established territorial boundaries. Their military conflicts demonstrate an aggressive nature that threatens peaceful coexistence. Hannah kept her face perfectly calm, but inside she was burning with anger. She had spent 3 years preparing humanity's application to join the Galactic Council. 3 years of careful diplomacy, detailed reports and countless meetings. 3 years of proving that humans could be reasonable and civilized. All of it wasted. Behind her, the human delegation sat in stunned silence. Director Park Jiwon, the head of Earth's space exploration program, stared at his hands. General Kim Saman, humanity's top military representative, had her jaw clenched so tight that Hannah could hear her teeth grinding. Dr. Choi Miho, Earth's leading xenobiologist, was frantically taking notes as if he could somehow find a way to argue against this decision. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, humanity's refusal to accept proper council oversight demonstrates a dangerous independence that could destabilize our carefully maintained peace. Therefore, the Council has reached a unanimous decision. Hannah's heart sank. Unanimous meant that even the few species who had seemed friendly to humans had voted against them. The peaceful traders, the Scientific Union, even the Democratic Alliance, all had turned their backs on humanity when it mattered most. Humanity is hereby banned from all Council space. No human vessel may travel beyond your home solar system. All trade agreements are immediately terminated. Any human found in Council territory will be considered a criminal and dealt with accordingly. The translation devices fell silent. In that moment, Hannah could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces. Some looked away in shame. Others stared at her with open hostility. A few seemed satisfied as if they had just solved a difficult problem. The truth hit her like a physical blow. This had never been about humanity's application to join the Council. This was about fear. These ancient civilizations, some of which had existed for millions of years, were terrified of what humans might become if given the chance to spread across the galaxy. Humans had only been in space for a few hundred years, but they had already colonized dozens of worlds in their own solar system. They had built massive space stations, developed faster-than-light travel, and shown an eagerness to explore that made older species nervous. While other civilizations had spent centuries debating the ethics of colonizing new worlds, humans just went out and did it. The Council representatives had read the reports. They knew that humans reproduced quickly, adapted to new environments with frightening speed, and had a talent for turning almost any planet into a thriving colony. What scared them most was humanity's history of conflict. While most Council species had achieved peace through careful negotiation and compromise, humans had fought wars that spanned continents and lasted for decades. They were survivors in a way that made peaceful species uncomfortable. Chancellor Vexthera raised one shadowy appendage, and the chamber's massive gavel began to descend. The sound when it struck was like thunder, echoing off the crystal walls until it felt like the entire building was shaking. This decision is final and cannot be appealed. Hannah began gathering her documents with steady hands. She could feel the eyes of 300 civilizations watching her every move, waiting to see how humanity would react to this devastating rejection. Some probably expected her to break down and beg for mercy. Others might have anticipated angry threats or desperate bargaining. Instead, Hannah simply packed her papers into her briefcase and straightened her jacket. She turned to face the chamber one last time, her dark eyes scanning the assembled representatives. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, carrying easily across the vast space without any artificial amplification. "The Galactic Council has made its position very clear," she said. "Humanity accepts this decision and will comply with all restrictions placed upon us. We will remain within our solar system as ordered." She paused for just a moment, letting her words sink in. Then she smiled, not a bitter or angry expression, but something that looked almost grateful. "Thank you for showing us exactly where we stand." As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, Hannah noticed something interesting. Several of the younger alien representatives were watching them leave with expressions that looked almost like envy. These ancient civilizations had achieved perfect peace and stability, but they had also achieved perfect stagnation. They had forgotten what it felt like to dream of something beyond their current boundaries. The Council had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history, though they would not realize it for many years to come. They had tried to cage humanity, but instead they had simply pointed them toward empty space and said, "Everything out there is yours." Humans had always been at their most dangerous when someone told them they could not do something. Dr. Park Jiwon pressed his palm against the thick glass window of the command center and watched another piece of human history disappear into the darkness of space. The massive generation ship Eternal Journey was just a bright dot now, carrying 50,000 people toward a star system that no council member had ever bothered to explore. It was the 47th ship to leave Earth this month alone. "Colony Fleet 12 has cleared the outer marker," reported Lieutenant Song Mina from her station. Her voice was steady, but Park could hear the excitement underneath. Every departure felt like a small victory against the Council's attempt to imprison humanity. 5 years had passed since Ambassador Lee Hanna had walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. 5 years since humanity had been told they were too dangerous to be trusted among civilized species. The galaxy had expected humans to sulk in their corner of space, maybe send a few angry messages and eventually accept their fate. Instead, Earth had responded with something that shocked every alien observer: the largest mass migration in human history. Park turned away from the window and walked to the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the command room. Tiny lights showed the positions of human ships scattered across a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked ships still in transit, blue showed established colonies, and green indicated successful terraforming projects. The display looked like someone had thrown glitter across a dark room. "Status report on the Kepler sector colonies?" Park asked. Commander Lee Juno pulled up the latest data. "New Seoul is reporting their first successful harvest. The wheat adapted better than expected to the higher gravity. New Busan has struck a major iron deposit, enough to supply 3 more colonies. And New Jeju." He paused and grinned. "New Jeju has discovered something incredible." Park raised an eyebrow. "Define incredible." "Ruins. Ancient alien architecture, but not from any species the Council knows about. The archaeological team thinks the builders disappeared at least 50,000 years ago. They left behind technology that our scientists are just beginning to understand." Park felt a familiar thrill run through him. This was exactly what the Council had feared. Humans were not content to simply survive on new worlds. They explored, they discovered, they pushed boundaries that other species had been too cautious to cross. While Council members spent decades debating whether it was safe to investigate an ancient ruin, humans would already be inside taking pictures and making notes. The ban had changed humanity in ways that Park was still trying to fully understand. Before the Council's rejection, humans had been divided into dozens of competing nations, each with their own space programs and colonial ambitions. The ban had erased those divisions overnight. Suddenly, it was not about American colonies or Chinese expansion or European settlements. It was about human survival, and that made all the difference. Every country on Earth had contributed to the exodus. Russian engineers worked alongside Brazilian scientists. Japanese manufacturers shared designs with African innovators. Indian mathematicians collaborated with Canadian pilots. Languages that had been barriers became bridges as humanity realized they were all in this together. The restricted trade had forced innovation at a pace that amazed even the humans themselves. Without access to Council technology and trade routes, human scientists had been forced to develop their own solutions. The results were remarkable. New faster-than-light drives that did not depend on Council-controlled jump gates. Self-sustaining colony systems that could turn a barren rock into a thriving world within a few years. Communication networks that spanned thousands of light-years without requiring alien infrastructure. "Sir, we are getting a transmission from colony ship Harmony," Lieutenant Song announced. "They have found something." Park walked over to her station. "Put it through." The holographic display shifted to show Captain Kim Yuna, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes but an excited smile. Behind her, Park could see the bridge of her ship buzzing with activity. "Director Park, we have arrived at the target system in the outer spiral," she reported. "You need to see what we found here." The image changed to show a view from the ship's external cameras. 3 planets orbited a yellow star very similar to Earth's sun. But what made Park catch his breath were the structures visible on the middle planet's surface. Massive geometric shapes that were clearly artificial, but built on a scale that dwarfed anything humans had ever constructed. "The planet appears to be abandoned," Captain Kim continued. "No life signs, no energy signatures, but the atmosphere is breathable and the gravity is perfect for human settlement. Whatever species built those structures, they have been gone for a very long time. We are requesting permission to establish Colony Base Alpha." Park looked around the command center. Every person on duty had stopped their work to stare at the transmission. This was what exploration felt like. The moment when humanity stepped into the unknown and found wonders waiting for them. "Permission granted, Captain," Park said. "Establish your colony and begin preliminary surveys of those structures. But be careful. We have no idea what we might be walking into." "Understood, Director." Harmony out. As the transmission ended, Park realized that the Council's ban had given humanity something precious: complete freedom to explore without having to ask permission from anyone. While Council species moved carefully through well-mapped trade routes, always checking with committees and following ancient protocols, humans were discovering entire civilizations that had been forgotten by the galaxy. The irony was not lost on him. The Council had tried to contain humanity's dangerous curiosity, but instead they had set it completely free. Lieutenant Song looked up from her station. "Director, long-range sensors are detecting 17 more colony ships approaching Earth orbit. They are requesting departure clearance for the Outer Rim territories." Park smiled and walked back to the window. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of Earth's sun, human colonies were taking root on worlds that had never known intelligent life. Human children were being born under alien stars. Human scientists were unlocking the secrets of civilizations that had fallen before Earth's sun was even born. The Council had intended to cage humanity within one solar system. Instead, they had unleashed them across the entire galaxy. Admiral Kim Salmon stood on the bridge of her flagship Iron Will and watched the alien fleet approach through the darkness of space. 12 massive crystalline ships moved in perfect formation toward New Terra Colony, their hulls glowing with an eerie blue light that made them look like moving jewels against the black void. They were beautiful in a way that made her stomach turn. Beautiful and deadly. "Distance to contact?" she asked without taking her eyes off the main display. 47 minutes at current approach speed," replied her tactical officer, Commander Park Hyun-woo. His voice was calm, but Salmon could see the tension in his shoulders. This would be humanity's first real space battle against an alien enemy, and nobody knew exactly what to expect. The hegemony had ruled this part of the galaxy for 800 years. Their crystalline ships were works of art that could slice through asteroids with focused energy beams and move through space with an elegance that human vessels could never match. They had never lost a battle because they had never faced an enemy that fought back with any real skill or determination. That was about to change. "All ships, this is Admiral Salmon," she said into her communicator. "Remember what we practiced. They expect us to fight like the Council species, careful, predictable, following all the rules of civilized warfare. We are going to show them how humans fight." The response came back from 23 human warships scattered throughout the system. Captains who had trained on Earth, officers who had studied every human conflict from ancient battles to modern warfare, crew members who understood that losing here meant losing everything they had built among the stars. The hegemony ships slowed as they entered the outer edge of the New Terra system. Their leader, a massive dreadnought that looked like a floating crystal cathedral, sent a message on standard galactic frequencies. The translation came through in perfect, emotionless English. "Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in hegemony space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This is your only warning." Salmon smiled grimly. The aliens thought they were dealing with refugees or pirates, small groups that would run at the first sign of trouble. They had no idea that humanity had spent the last 5 years preparing for exactly this moment. "All ships, execute Formation Delta," she ordered. The human fleet scattered like birds startled by a gunshot. Ships that had been moving in neat lines suddenly spread out in all directions, some diving toward the system's asteroid belt while others climbed above the plane of the planets. To the hegemony it probably looked like panic. To Salmon, it looked like controlled chaos, the kind that humans had perfected over centuries of warfare. The alien dreadnought fired first, a brilliant beam of concentrated energy that could have cut a mountain in half. but it struck empty space where the human flagship had been a second before. Saman had already moved her ship behind the bulk of New Terra's largest moon, using the rocky satellite as a shield. Phase 1 complete, reported Commander Park. Enemy is engaging our decoy drones. While the hegemony ships focused their attention on the holographic projections that looked like fleeing human vessels, the real attack began. 3 human ships had positioned themselves near the system's asteroid belt and began using their gravity manipulators to fling house-sized rocks at incredible speeds. The crystalline hulls that could deflect energy weapons cracked and shattered under the impact of simple stone and metal. The aliens tried to adapt, turning their weapons toward the asteroids to destroy them before impact. But that was exactly what Saman had counted on. While they were distracted, her main fleet attacked from 3 different directions at once. Human ships moved like wolves hunting in a pack. They did not try to match the aliens' elegant maneuvers or challenge them to single combat. Instead, they swarmed, with 2 or 3 human vessels attacking each hegemony ship from different angles. When the aliens focused their fire on one attacker, the others would close in for killing strikes. Their hull composition suggests they are vulnerable to rapid temperature changes, announced Dr. Lee Sun-woo from the science station. Recommend alternating heat and cold-based weapons. Saman nodded and relayed the information to her fleet. Human weapons had been designed for flexibility, not elegance. Within minutes, her ships were hitting the crystalline vessels with superheated plasma followed immediately by bursts of liquid nitrogen. The alien hulls, beautiful but rigid, began to crack and shatter like glass windows hit by hammers. The battle raged for 6 hours. The hegemony fought with the skill of centuries, but they had grown comfortable with easy victories against opponents who followed predictable patterns. They expected their enemies to fight with honor, to avoid civilian areas, to give warning before attacking. Humans did none of these things. They used the gravity of planets as weapons, turning the system's own celestial bodies against the invaders. They hid behind debris clouds and struck without warning. When one of their ships was badly damaged, the crew would ram it into an alien vessel rather than surrender. By the time the last hegemony ship jumped away into hyperspace, 8 of the original 12 were destroyed and the survivors were broadcasting emergency signals across their territory. The crystalline warriors had learned something new about the galaxy. There was a species out here that fought wars the way other civilizations lived their entire lives, without mercy, without hesitation, and without any intention of giving up. Admiral Kim Saman stood in the wreckage of her bridge and watched the enemy retreat. Her ship was heavily damaged and she had lost 4 vessels from her fleet. But New Terra was safe, and more importantly, humanity had sent a message that would spread across the outer spiral like wildfire. The humans were not refugees. They were not pirates. They were conquerors and they had come to stay. President Admiral Choi Miho walked slowly across the transparent floor of Olympus Station's main assembly hall, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber that hung suspended in the darkness between stars. Below his feet, through the crystal-clear deck, he could see the swirling colors of a distant nebula. Above him, the curved ceiling showed a live view of space in all directions, making it feel like the entire meeting was taking place in the void itself. 200 holographic figures filled the circular seating arrangement around him. Each glowing form represented a human world, from the mining colonies of the outer rim to the agricultural planets of the core systems. 10 years ago, most of these worlds had not even existed. Now they formed the backbone of something the galaxy had never seen before, a truly unified human empire. Fellow citizens, Choi began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced acoustics. 10 years ago, the Galactic Council told us we were too dangerous to be trusted with the stars. Today, we control more territory than half of their member species combined. A murmur of satisfaction rippled through the assembled representatives. Admiral Park Yuna from the Kepler Defense Fleet nodded approvingly. Governor Lee Jinwoo of New Busan raised his hand in a brief salute. Dr. Kim Hanna, now Director of Xenological Studies, smiled with quiet pride. The transformation had been remarkable. What started as scattered refugee colonies had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history. The Human Federation operated on principles that balanced individual world autonomy with collective strength. Each planet could govern itself however its people chose, but all contributed to the common defense and expansion efforts. The latest reports show remarkable progress, Choi continued, gesturing to a holographic display that appeared in the center of the chamber. Our agricultural worlds are producing food surpluses that would feed billions. Our industrial colonies are manufacturing technology that surpasses council standards. Our research stations are making discoveries that rewrite scientific understanding. The display showed streams of cargo ships moving between human worlds like glowing rivers of light. Trade routes that had been established without any council oversight or interference connected hundreds of systems in an efficient network. Resources flowed where they were needed most, knowledge spread freely between colonies, and innovations developed on one world quickly found their way across the entire empire. What made the Human Federation truly unique was its openness to non-human refugees. While the Council maintained strict immigration policies and rigid species segregation, human space welcomed anyone who sought freedom from oppressive governments. The blue-skinned Aquarians who had fled their world's religious dictatorship. The insectoid builders whose hive mind had been declared illegal by council law. The energy-based sparks who had been banned from most galactic territories because other species found them disturbing. Director Kim, please update us on our newest citizens, Choi said. Dr. Kim Hannah stood and activated her own display. We have processed over 2 million alien refugees in the past year alone. They bring knowledge, skills, and perspectives that strengthen our entire civilization. The Aquarian water farming techniques have revolutionized agriculture on dry worlds. Builder construction methods allow us to create structures that would be impossible with human technology alone. The sparks have taught us new ways to manipulate energy that our scientists are still trying to fully understand. What the Council had feared was happening, but not in the way they had expected. Humanity was not conquering the galaxy through force alone. They were transforming it by offering something that had become rare among the stars: genuine freedom and opportunity. The economic numbers were staggering. Human trade networks now handled more cargo than some entire council sectors. Their manufacturing output had grown by 3,000% in just 5 years. Most importantly, their technology had advanced at a pace that shocked even human scientists. Admiral Park, report on our defensive capabilities, Choi requested. Admiral Park Yuna stood with military precision. Our fleet now consists of over 8,000 vessels, ranging from fast scout ships to heavy battlecruisers. Human shipyards are producing new vessels at a rate of 50 per month. Our weapons technology has advanced far beyond what we brought from Earth, incorporating innovations from captured enemy equipment and collaborative research with our alien allies. The military expansion had been necessary. Word of humanity's success had spread throughout the galaxy, attracting both allies and enemies. While some species sought trade and friendship with the growing human empire, others saw them as a threat that needed to be eliminated before they became too powerful. But every attack had only made humanity stronger. Each defeated enemy contributed their technology to human research efforts. Each successful defense demonstrated to neutral species that humans could protect their friends as well as defeat their enemies. The reputation for military effectiveness that had started with the victory over the hegemony had grown into something approaching legend. The Council continues to ignore our existence officially, Choi noted with amusement. Their recent statements refer to minor disturbances in the outer territories and temporary disruptions to normal trade patterns. They refuse to acknowledge that humanity now controls nearly 30% of explored galactic territory. That denial was becoming harder to maintain. Human exploration fleets had discovered and colonized star systems that Council surveys had marked as uninhabitable. Human scientists had unlocked the secrets of ancient alien ruins that Council archaeologists had declared too dangerous to investigate. Human diplomats were signing trade agreements with species that the Council had never bothered to contact. Most disturbing to the traditional galactic powers was the speed of human expansion. While Council member species took decades to establish a single new colony, humans could terraform and populate entire systems within a few years. Their willingness to accept risk, adapt to new environments, and work together across species lines gave them advantages that more established civilizations could not match. Standing in the heart of Olympus Station, surrounded by representatives of 200 human worlds, Choi felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The Galactic Council had tried to contain humanity within their home system. Instead, they had forced humans to become something greater than they might have been otherwise, a galactic power that operated by its own rules and answered to no authority except the will of its own people. The stars belonged to those bold enough to claim them, and humanity had proven they were the boldest species in the galaxy. The crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber looked exactly the same as it had 15 years ago, but everything else had changed. The same 300 species sat in their assigned seats, the same translation devices hummed overhead, and the same ceremonial lighting cast dramatic shadows across the vast space. But today the air itself felt different. Today the Council was afraid. Ambassador Lee Hanna walked across the chamber floor with steady, confident steps. Her diplomatic uniform was still black, but now it bore the silver star insignia of the Human Federation. She was no longer a representative begging for acceptance. She was an imperial delegate delivering terms from an empire that controlled nearly a third of the known galaxy. Behind her, through the chamber's massive windows, the emergency lights of Council Defense Fleet could be seen blinking in the darkness. 1,200 ships had been hastily assembled when long-range sensors detected the approaching human armada. But even that impressive force looked small compared to the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Human fleets had appeared simultaneously at 17 different Council border systems, not attacking, but simply waiting with engines powered and weapons ready. Chancellor Vexthera looked older than his species normally aged. The ethereal collective typically lived for thousands of years without showing signs of wear, but the stress of the past decade had left visible marks on his shadowy form. His glowing blue eyes, once bright with confidence, now flickered with uncertainty as he watched Hannah approach the speaker's podium. The Galactic Council recognizes Imperial Delegate Lee Hanna of the Human Federation, he said, struggling slightly with the formal words. 15 years ago, humanity had been a single species seeking membership. Now they were an interstellar empire that commanded respect through strength. Hannah smiled as she activated the podium's communication system. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber, translated instantly into hundreds of languages but somehow retaining the cold edge of authority that made every listener pay attention. Honorable Chancellor, esteemed representatives, she began, her tone polite but carrying an undertone that made it clear this was not a request. I bring greetings from President Admiral Choi Miho and the 200 worlds of the Human Federation. We have come to discuss the future relationship between our peoples. A ripple of whispers ran through the assembled delegates. 200 worlds. In 15 years, humanity had gone from being confined to a single solar system to controlling more territory than most council member species had claimed in millennia of expansion. The Human Federation has 3 simple requests, Hannah continued, activating a holographic display that showed the current political map of the galaxy. Human territory appeared in bright blue, spreading across 3 spiral arms like an infection that had grown beyond all control. First, we demand full recognition as a sovereign galactic power with all rights and privileges that status entails. Chancellor Vexthera shifted uncomfortably. Recognition would mean accepting that the Council's authority was no longer absolute, that there was now another major power in the galaxy that operated completely outside their control. Second, we require reparations for the economic losses caused by your illegal trade embargo. Our economists estimate the damages at approximately 50 billion galactic credits, to be paid over the next decade through preferential trade agreements. The number sent a shock through the chamber. 50 billion credits was more money than some entire species had seen in their history. But everyone present knew that the Human Federation could probably collect that debt by force if they chose to. Third, we propose the establishment of new trade routes and diplomatic exchanges on equal terms. The galaxy has grown beyond the Council's ability to manage effectively, and it is time to recognize that reality. Behind these formal demands lay an unstated threat that everyone in the chamber understood. Human fleets were positioned at the borders of Council space not as invaders, but as a demonstration of power. The message was clear. We are offering you a chance to negotiate, but we do not need your permission to exist. The truth was even more threatening than the military display. Across Council space, member species were beginning to question the system that had kept them in line for thousands of years. Young civilizations looked at humanity's rapid expansion and wondered why they needed Council approval to explore new worlds. Older species saw human innovation and asked themselves why they had been content to stagnate under bureaucratic oversight. 3 species had already announced their intention to withdraw from the Council and establish independent governments modeled after the Human Federation. A dozen others were quietly negotiating trade agreements with human worlds, ignoring the official embargo that was supposed to isolate humanity. The Council's grip on galactic civilization was weakening with each passing month. The Council will need time to consider these requests, Chancellor Vexthera said carefully. He was trying to maintain some appearance of authority, but everyone could hear the defeat in his voice. Hannah nodded graciously. Of course. The Human Federation is prepared to wait, for a reasonable amount of time. Our fleets will remain at their current positions while you deliberate. We would hate for there to be any misunderstanding about our intentions. As the session was called into recess, Hannah gathered her materials and walked toward the exit. The same aliens who had watched her leave in disgrace 15 years ago now stared at her with a mixture of fear and respect. The human they had dismissed as too aggressive and independent had returned as the representative of an empire that could dictate terms to the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Outside the chamber, through the massive windows, the lights of the human fleet twinkled like new stars against the darkness. Each ship represented a world that had chosen freedom over security, exploration over stability, and human determination over alien approval. The Galactic Council had tried to cage humanity within their home system, fearing what they might become if allowed to spread across the stars. They had succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares. Free from the Council's restrictions and expectations, humanity had become exactly what the aliens had feared most: a power that could reshape the galaxy according to its own vision. The stars had always belonged to those bold enough to claim them. Now the galaxy was learning what that really meant.